Hello, hello. Steve, Canadian Sasquatch, coming at you with another Mead Monday. That's right. Let's get into it. But first, reminder, book is on sale. Shirts are on sale. Those are down below. Link to my store, which also has a bunch of other stuff that I recommend through Amazon. So yeah. There's also on my website a new tool that I've just put up for blending alcohol beverages, which may be useful for this year's mead challenge, since you need to have a mead that is less than 8% ABV. If you end up with something that's higher than 8%, you might need to blend it with something to lower that ABV. And the blending calculator that I put on my website achieves that. So yeah, go check. The links will be down below for that. And with that, let's taste some mead. Today we are going to Redstone Meadery. I always like Redstone Meadery because they have these cool bottles. So this is Sunshine Nectar, carbonated honey wine with apricot puree, 8% by volume. So not allowed in the challenge. It's got to be less than 8%. 750 ml, served cold. Melomel. Ingredients: clover honey, wildflower honey, Narbonne yeast, and apple puree. I like the fact that they say what kind of yeast they're using. In order to preserve the delicate honey flavor, we pasteurize rather than boil. Swing top and serve cold and recap. No dates on the bottle. We need dates. With that, let's see if we can do that here. Carbonate it. There. So it is a crystal clear golden straw color. You'd be able to see more if the glass didn't have condensation, but yeah, crystal clear golden straw in color. You can see the bubbles coming up. Definitely carbonate it. Let's give it an aroma. So I am picking up a hint of metallic aroma. But I do get the honeys. Not getting any fruit aromas, just a little bit of that metal and a little, and the honey aromas. And that's about it for the aromas, so let's give this a taste. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this Mead Monday. So yeah, so as I was pulling in a sip of that, I was getting the metallic aroma, and that led to a metallic taste as well. So that is coming through. And I do get that classic mead flavor, the honey, the fermented honey flavor coming through on it. It is dry. And I don't really get any apricot whatsoever on this. Yeah, no apricot. It just tastes like a traditional. Yeah, there is nothing in the bottle, so no sediment that would have totally mixed up when the lid was popped open. The carbonation would have forced it all up. But yeah, we might get some more flavor off of it if it was warmer. It does say serve cold, so that's what I did. I do prefer to drink meads warm. Well, warm, room temperature, 55 to room temperature. This is going to be closer to 38, 34 to 38. So, yeah. Still getting a little bit of that metallic flavor to it, so it's not bad. It's not great. I can't really give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's not thumbs down worthy. It's not thumbs up worthy. So it's just going to be a sideways thumbs. Definitely, if you see it around, get yourself a bottle. Try it yourself. We'll see what happens. For the time being, we'll move on and to some knowledge for you guys, questions and whatnot. So today we're going to talk about temperature and yeast. Quite often people wonder just how important temperature control for making a fermented anything really is. Beer, mead, wine, bread, whatever, anything that uses yeast to ferment with. Quite often it's like, how important is the temperature that you ferment at? And it is quite important. Different temperatures give you different results. So you have the yeasts that are like the wine yeasts, the ale yeasts for beer on one hand, and then you got lager yeasts on the other hand. And the ale and wine yeasts, they like to be fermented warmer than the lager. That's just how the yeasts developed over the eons of developing. Some of them like it nice and warm to be able to chew through their sugar. Some of them like it nice and cool to chew through the sugars. And that's just what happens. Evolution causes that. You have optimal ranges per strand of yeast. So you got your ale and your wine yeasts up here that like to be fermented warm, but what is warm? Each strand will have a different temperature range that is optimal for. And we'll go through some of the yeasts that I have here and what they like. So let's talk about if you're fermenting too cold, what happens. We've gone over this a little bit in the past. If it's too cold, then what the yeast will do is they will collect together, they'll huddle up, they'll cuddle, and then they'll get sleepy and hibernate, and they fall out of suspension. Once they're out of suspension, hibernating, sleeping, they're not chewing through those sugars. So it's too cold for them to ferment anything. And we quite often will do this on purpose, which is cold crashing, specifically to stop the yeast from fermenting our beverage any further. Once it hits like a sweetness that we really want it at, we cold crash it. Those yeasts huddle up, hibernate, fall out of suspension, we rack off them, and it's not quite stabilized because there's still some yeast in there. But there's a lot less in there, so it takes a lot less effort to stabilize the mead at that point. On the flip side, if it's too warm, then it can kill the yeast. It can also stress the yeast. I've talked about calling it yeast sweat when they're stressed and they're producing those off flavors. Some of those off flavors are like rubber or fusels, which are like hot alcohols. And those are the flavors that we definitely do not want in any of our beverages. Nobody wants to drink a mug of cold rubber. That's just disgusting. Same with the fusels. You don't want to drink something that's just tastes like fusels, because that's just, again, it's like drinking jet fuel or something like that. It just does not taste good at all. But there are some beneficial flavors that we can get out of the yeast if we do ferment them a little bit warmer. Various esters will come out of the yeast, and there'll be things that are like a fruity flavor or clove or banana. Sometimes you can get a licorice or an apple or a pear flavor if you ferment the yeasts a little bit warmer than at the higher end of their happy range. You'll get those esters that produce the flavors that quite often you want. Like you want the banana and the clove when you're doing Belgian style beers, Hefeweizens and whatnot. You want those esters to come out. You want those slight fruity flavors when you're making like a British pale ale or a mild. And as you see, I'm talking about beer yeast, because that's where it's usually used the most, is in the beers. It also happens with wine yeasts when we're doing meads and whatnot as well. Some of the wine yeasts produce various esters of their own. Some of them enhance flavors based on temperatures as well. We'll go into a little bit of that when I go through my other yeasts here. So when we're talking about happy temperature ranges, what temperatures are those? So with wine and ale yeast, quite often it's 65 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The lager yeasts, they like it cooler, so it's usually 45 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which makes them happy. And again, it all depends on the flavors that you want. Lagers are known for their crisp, clear flavors, no off flavors, no esters, none of that. And that's because you have a yeast that you're fermenting very, very cool, so it doesn't have the opportunity to get warm and spew out all that yeast sweat, as it were, to enhance various flavors or to cause various flavors while fermenting. All right, so with that, let's go through some of the yeasts. I do have some of the yeasts that I have on hand here that we can go over. Let's start with, bread yeast. So if you're watching my channel, you know about Joe's Ancient Orange. If you don't know about it, then you should find out. My book has the recipe in it. You can Google Joe's Ancient Orange to find the recipe. My Meadology series, we actually make the Joe's Ancient Orange, and we use the bread yeast. Why do we use the bread yeast? Because it's easy to find. You go to any grocery store, bread yeast. And it's a very robust yeast. It's got a temperature range of 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And when we're making the Joes, we prefer it on the higher side, so like the 75 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Why do we like that? Because it ferments faster that way. And with Joe's Ancient Orange, we're doing it in 2 months. So you've got a warm yeast, chews through the sugars fast, and it likes it. we don't get any real off flavors from fermenting at that temperature with the bread yeast. It's a happy yeast. The next one is Lalvin's EC1118. Let's see if we can get that on there without any glare. So this is the wine super yeast. It's the one that can go up to 18% ABV without even blinking an eye. It ferments very, very vigorously. Not a yeast that I like to use because it ferments vigorously and it will spew all your aromas and flavors out the airlock. And it again, super yeast, so it can ferment between 60 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. My preferred temperature typically is actually right around 75 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's because if I'm using this yeast, then I'm using it to save a mead that didn't ferment within the first couple of days. So I warm that must up, I pitch this yeast in there, and it takes off and it takes over anything else that's in there. And it gets its fermentation going very, very fast at those temperatures to save the mead. Now, if I'm using it for carbonating, then I will drop that down and carbonate at a much lower, usually around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. But it is a clean yeast. You rarely get any off flavors from fermenting at the higher range. I have never fermented with it over 80, and since it can go up to 86, you might be able to get some off flavors of some sort. When I say off flavors, I mean the fusels or the esters, or so some of them might be off flavors, some of them might be off flavors that are actually good, just not what you want it. So yeah, so it's huge range. Another one that has the same range, 60 to 86, is another one of my yeasts that I use a lot, which is the K1V1116. So like I said, 60 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And I typically ferment at 65 to 70 with this one, and I get super clean flavors out of it. No esters, nothing whatsoever. This one though, I have accidentally fermented around 80, like up in the low 80s, so like 80 to 85 range, and I have gotten rubber flavors off of it. Unfortunately, that's just one of those things. I didn't have a way to temperature control the batch that I was making. The house was at a steady 80 to 85, so the mead fermented at that temperature, and so you can get rubber flavors if you ferment too hot with the K1V1116. Next up is another wine yeast that I use, the Lalvin's RC212. So this one has a temperature range of 68 to 86, so another warmer yeast. It likes it warmer than the other two. And I ferment like right around the 68 to 70 with this one. And it pulls out, at those temperatures, it pulls out citrus flavors really well. I use this one specifically for my blood orange Melomel that I like to make. And I haven't noticed any off flavors from it because I don't ferment it at the higher temperatures, but at the temperatures that I do ferment at, I get those lovely citrus flavors just shining through. So yeah, that's another yeast. I have a couple of beer yeasts here. So this one is the WLP007. So it is a dry English ale. And this one likes it at sorry, 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And being an English yeast, it does produce esters easily. Typically the fruity esters that you'll see in an English pale ale or a mild, or even a English style barley wine, which is why I got this one, was I used it in my barley wine that I brewed last year. So yeah, it's one that fermented a little bit on the warmer side. It has a very small range, 65 to 70. I do it at the 68 to 70, and I pull out those esters, those fruity esters that I do wish to have in my beverage. And then the last yeast I have here is WLP070. This is my top secret yeast, so don't tell anybody about it, that I use in my imperial stouts. That's right, I'm using a bourbon yeast in my imperial stouts. It is a warm yeast. It likes to ferment at 72 to 77 Fahrenheit. So all the other ones were like in the 60s or lower. This one wants to be up in the 70s, similar to the bread yeast, which 70 to 80. This one is 72 to 77. And I typically ferment at 68 with this one. So I'm actually fermenting colder than what it suggests. And the reason I do that is I want it to be a slow, strong fermentation. I don't get any off flavors from it because it is very, very slow. The yeast aren't able to do anything whatsoever or produce any off flavors because they're too hot or stressed that way. But they're right on the cusp of wanting to cuddle up, hibernate, and drop out when I do it. So, but at the higher temperatures, this is what they use for making bourbon. So you get those bourbon flavors from this yeast. Some of those, you typically won't taste too much of it in the bourbon because it's getting distilled and then aged in a barrel, but you do get some of the esters, some of the spices and whatnot can happen from this that do come through on some of the bourbons where it's used. So yeah, so that is the yeasts I use, the temperatures, the reason why I use the temperatures, what can happen when you ferment too cold, they hibernate and fall out. Ferment too hot, you get the off flavors, whether they're off flavors you wish to have, the fruities, the spices, clove, banana, all that, or you end up with the really bad off flavors, the rubber, the fusels, etc. And with that, that's all I got for this week, guys. So we'll go back to this guy. Give it it's warmed up now a little bit, so let's see if it's improved any. Speaking of temperatures, I did get a hint as I was taking a sip through the nose of apricot that time. So as it warms up, you get the fruity, the fruit apricot. Definitely needs to be drank warmer than a fridge temperature. Probably 45 degrees would be optimal for this beverage right here. At this point, I would give it a thumbs up for the Redstone. With that, speaking of thumbs up, give me a thumbs up down below if you would not mind. If you've enjoyed it, if you've learned something. If you have not already, I invite you guys to hit that subscribe button that's also down there. That way you can see these videos as they come out, especially if you hit that bell that's down there. Hit that bell and it'll sign you up for notifications, so as soon as I post, which is Monday mornings, 8 a.m., these Mead Mondays pop out. And yes, that is really early in the morning to start drinking, but remember, you can't drink all day unless you start drinking first thing in the morning. Food for thought. And with that, my friends, be sure to have a pint of awesome. I know I will. Cheers, everybody.